Good morning. Thanks so much for coming out on this rainy morning. We're the Palatine area League of Women Voters, and we take in Schaumburg, Rolling Meadows, Barrington, Inverness, a big area. And this is our first time doing a forum in Schaumburg, so we're excited that you all came out. The League of Women Voters was started out of the suffragette movement in 1920. So as of next February, 2020, the League of Women Voters will be 100 years old. We're going to party. And our league is 60 years old this year, so we're pretty excited. It's been a big year. I just want to give you a brief introduction about the league. It is a nonpartisan political organization that neither supports, opposes, or recommends candidates for office. The league's purpose is to promote responsibility through informed and active participation of all citizens. Providing this forum allows citizens to become better informed about the issues facing the community and the candidates running for office. And we're pleased to offer this service to you. As you can see, we're holding now 2 more forums. This is the village trustees, and then we'll be holding the candidates for mayor. I'd like to introduce Vicki Martin, who is our chair for the forum and a League of Women Voters member.
Since many of you were not here for the prior forum, and because our candidates have just arrived, I'm going to go over the structure of the forum itself and touch on the rules. All of the candidates have drawn numbers to determine the speaking order, and the moderator will rotate the speaking order as each question comes up. That way, everybody gets a chance to answer first. Each candidate will have 2 minutes for their opening statement. Each candidate will have 1 minute to answer each question. And at the end, each candidate will have a 1-minute closing statement. League members are acting as timer ladies. Candidates will be given a 30-second and 15-second warning. So please quickly compose your thoughts before you see the stop card. Time limits will be enforced out of respect for all the candidates. Questions will be provided initially by the moderator, and then questions will be taken from the audience. There are league members going around with pencils and note cards. If you have a question, raise your hand, turn it back to a league member, and we'll see that it gets to the candidates. We have league members who are vetting each question for clarity, appropriateness, and to avoid duplication. Please remember that we do have time limits on the length of our forum. So if you have a burning question, get it in at the beginning, because if you turn your question in late, there may be others in line ahead of you, so your question may not be heard. We do our best to get them all in, but it's just not physically possible given our time constraints. Our candidates are asked, please to not interrupt each other, and to please speak directly to the audience. Audience, please turn off all your electronic devices. The forum is being videotaped for education of the public. It'll be available on the League of Women Voters website. The candidates have all agreed in advance to that. We ask that you hold your applause until the end and do not demonstrate in any way for any particular candidate. We go to great lengths here to remain as neutral and fair as possible. So there is space outside the room for the candidates to speak to supporters after the forum, and campaign literature is available on the table outside the door. No voice, image, or recorded part of our video production may be used by the candidates. It's exclusively for the use of the League of Women Voters, and we hold sole rights to the video. So please be respectful of all our candidates and your fellow audience members. So now I am pleased to introduce our moderator for today's forum, Catherine Sawyer. Catherine is the Chief Advancement Officer for Oakton Community College and a League of Women Voters member.
interest in hearing from our candidates. It's certainly my pleasure to be with you to moderate this series of forums. As Vicki mentioned, I am a very proud league member. I am also a resident of the village of Palatine, and therefore I am not eligible to vote in any of the races that are being discussed today, and therefore have been asked to serve as an impartial facilitator for today's discussion. As indicated in the introduction, in this forum, we'll hear from candidates in the race for Village of Schaumburg Trustee. Incorporated in 1956, the village covers 19,000 square miles with a population of approximately 75,000 residents and 5,000 businesses. The village is governed by a board of 6 trustees and a village president. We'll hear from candidates, from the candidates for president in our next forum. At this forum, we have 6 candidates running to fill 3 seats. With us today and on the ballot in alphabetical order are D2 Bob Walker, Brian Bishke, George Dunham, Scott Feldenhauser, Mark Madej, and Rocco Taranova. The winner of April's election will serve a 4-year term. So thank you all for participating in the forum. As I understand that you have already had a very busy morning, so thanks for being with us. By number draw, we will start with Mr. Bishke first. If you give us your 2-minute opening remarks, please.
Thanks, Catherine. And thanks to the League of Women Voters for hosting this event here this morning. My name is Brian Bishke. I've been a resident of the Village of Schaumburg for over 40 years, and for the last 14 years, I've had the privilege of serving the Village of Schaumburg on many different boards, committees, and commissions. I currently serve as a member of the Zoning Board of Appeals, and prior to that, I served on the Plan Commission for 6 years, and I was chairman of the Schaumburg Environmental Committee before that. During my time serving the village, I've attended countless meetings, not only for the committees I've served on, but for many others, including village board meetings, committee of the whole, the 6 standing committee meetings, budget presentations, monthly coffee with the council meetings. All of these meetings have prepared me to be here in front of you today. I'm running for village trustee in large part because of my extensive local government knowledge and experience. You see, I believe to be an effective village trustee, experience matters, and I have it. I'm also running in part because I have a great love of Schaumburg. I've lived here most of my life. I've met my wife here. I've raised 3 children here. I've seen Schaumburg grow over the years into one of the largest economic centers in the state of Illinois, and I'm enthusiastic about our future development. When I'm elected, I will work with village board members and staff to oversee village finances and continue to keep the village in a strong financial position. I will work to reduce the village portion of the property tax, seeking out new ways to continue to provide great services while holding the line on spending. And I will continue to support the current efforts to rebuild, repair, and maintain our village roadways, our bikeways, and other village infrastructure as necessary. I'm thankful to be here today with you, and I'm very excited to be a part of the future of Schaumburg.
Thank you. Mr. Bob Walker.
Thank you for hosting this and inviting me to speak. I came to the United States in 1979 after immigrating from India, and I came straight to Schaumburg with $0, no English. At the time, I was 19 years old. I then completed my education from Devra University as an electronic technician. I have owned and operated many businesses, including retail stores, hotels, motels, Dunkin' Donuts, a restaurant, a theater, a strip mall, also a bowling center. I have a passion for public service that came from my father, who was the mayor of my hometown in India. He was a hardworking businessman and taught me many things about being a small business owner. I want to bring those skills to the office of trustee. I currently serve as a president of the Gujarati Samaj of Chicago. I was also a board member for Metropolitan Asian Family Service for many years. My greatest success to date is being married to my lovely wife, Harsha, for 36 years. I have 2 children, boy and a girl.
Thank you. Mr. Felgenhauer.
Good morning. First off, I want to thank the League of Women Voters for having us out today, and also specifically to you all, because this weather, I give you props for getting out here today to listen to us. Hopefully we bring some value to you. So, my family moved to Schaumburg in 1980, and although I know we all up here love Schaumburg, or at least I hope we do, since we're here, I have very few memories prior to being here when I was 5 years old. I came up through Hoover, Adams, proud Schaumburg High School grad. I was involved in scouts and with sports, and now as an adult, I'm still involved in scouts and sports with my kids, both as a charter representative and leader for PAC 199, as well as a coach through SAA. I'm on the District 54 Foundation Board and chairman of our largest fundraiser. I'm a member of the Schaumburg JCs for the past 15 years, past president, as well as senator for the organization. I'm a chairman for the Village of Schaumburg Blood Program Committee. It's something that's very important to me. Professionally, I'm on the board of directors for the Schaumburg Business Association and part of the economic development team, focusing specifically on business retention and expansion. And I feel that there's come a time where Schaumburg has had tremendous growth since 1980, but there needs to be renewed passion, energy, and ideas to not only retain businesses in the community, but bring in new, as well as bring a new positive attitude to the community members in the neighborhood. And I know that by combining my ties to the community and business as a leader, that we as a board will continue to make Schaumburg the best village that it can be. So I thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Taranova.
Thank you, and I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for inviting us, and thank all of you for attending and giving me the opportunity to speak to you. My name is Rocco Taranova. My wife Sue and I are proud parents of 3 adult children and 10 grandchildren. I am currently running for the Village of Schaumburg trustee. Last July, after 41 years with Local 73 sheet metal workers, I retired from my career as elected president and business manager and elected general vice president of the International. Some of my responsibilities were negotiating fair and equitable contracts, working with both sides of the table. I worked on several budgets, lowering the debt, and increasing revenue. I was chairman of all the financial boards for investments, pensions, health, and welfare. I worked with all our vendors to negotiate good agreements, lowering the cost. I have been an active community servant with much involvement building strong relationships on both sides of the table. I was a director of Woodfield Area Children's Organization, Hoffman Estates Park District Building and Grounds and Finance Committees. I was a patrol officer, Schaumburg Township Democratic Committeeman, a youth commissioner, and a youth coach for St. Hubert's. I believe that my experiences in my life have brought me to this table. Being retired, I have a lot more time to do and donate my time and work for the village. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Madej.
Thank you, Catherine, and thank you for the League of Women's Voters to put this together. I've been a Schaumburg resident since 1982. Been married 37 years. I have 2 sons that grew up in this town, went to their great schools, and went on to college. And one of them works for BuzzFeed out in LA, and the other one tagged along. So I'm an empty nester, but I love this town. I was appointed as a village trustee in 2005, elected full term in 2007, re-elected in 2011 and 2015. I currently am chairman of Health and Human Services Committee. I'm also on Transportation, Engineering, and Public Works Committees, and I'm a past Septemberfest committee member. Also, I'm a past Schaumburg representative of the Board of Directors, Community Economic Development Association of Cook County. I'm not too sure if anybody is aware of what that is. It was called CETA. They have about 40 or more different programs to help lower income. I was a past Red Cross disaster volunteer and a past Scout volunteer. If I continue to be a trustee, I'm going to continue on lowering our property taxes as we have in the past 10 years.
Thank you. Mr. Dunham.
Thank you. Thanks to the League for hosting this event. Thanks to all of you for taking a part of your busy Saturday morning and coming to listen to us. I've been a Schaumburg resident. Diane and I have been Schaumburg residents since 1978. We were married in 72, which has us coming up on 47 years of marriage in April. For the first 6 or 7 years of our marriage, we came out here darn near every weekend because we liked Woodfield, we liked the restaurants, and we liked the development. And finally, we found a house that we liked, and we've been here since 1978. I found myself involved with a neighborhood association that I helped start that was about to be surrounded by an extremely high-density multiple family development. We decided to protest that, and we started going to village board meetings and zoning board meetings and all kinds of meetings, and the village listened to us. And payback for that was somebody said, George, why don't you come and serve on a committee? So I did that, a couple of different committees. Then I ran for trustee in '89, didn't make it, came back in '91. And now I'm the senior trustee because I've been here a couple of years longer than everybody else. I chair the finance committee, I sit on the public safety committee and the planning, building, and development committee, and I'm mayor pro tem. I have really enjoyed the time that I've spent working for Schaumburg because I consider this a calling. And it's something that I love to do, something I would love to keep doing, representing you to keep our taxes in control, keep tight controls over our spending and our development. And I want to thank you again for giving us the opportunity to come.
Thank you. And now we'll move on to questions. Audience members, if you have a question, please put them on a card and pass them to the aisles. I'll start with a few of my own. So we'll start with Mr. Bogwalker. What is the most serious challenge facing the village of Schaumburg in the next 4 years, and how do you propose to address them?
Well, the most challenging things.
The microphone is coming.
Most challenging thing is the debt. Schaumburg is in over $500 million in debt. So that we definitely have to work on to reduce it. And we do have a plan to reduce that, some of them. And also, they're proposing parking deck and entertainment center, which is over $100 million. And that's going to increase the debt, not decrease. So we need to look into that. And also we need to cut down all this unnecessary expenses to reduce the debt. And that's the biggest challenge we have.
Thank you. Mr. Feldenhauer, 1 minute.
So I'm not sure if you've seen it recently, but there's been a raise, or there's a proposed raise to $15 an hour for minimum wage. And one of the biggest things we're going to see over the next 4 to 5 years is as that grows, companies, as a member of the Schaumburg Business Association, we do a lot of outreach to companies in Schaumburg. And one of the things that we're finding is that they feel that when they raise the minimum wage, right now they're all paying between $11 and $13 an hour. Once they raise it another $3 to $4 an hour, they're going to have to cut headcounts, and they're going to have to minimize their hiring in the future as it comes through. So what we need to do is be ahead of that to make sure that we're still providing talent to our businesses, to make sure that they, as this challenge comes up in the near future, they will be ready to take it on through quality talent in the area.
Thank you. Mr. Taranova.
As my running mate said, what inspired me really to run is when I saw the debt, and the debt is at $128.5 million. You will be told that some is pension, some is welfare. That is true, but it's still debt. And the diversity is half the change. The town is changing. There's not enough diversity on the board, and as you can see who my running mates are, that is a big issue for me.
Thank you. Mr. Madej.
I think with a AAA rating, you can see that nobody's worried about our debt. Our debt is lower than our opponents are quoting. There's mandated debt, and then there's other types of debt. Without getting into details, there's also the issue people don't realize that bonds that are part of the debt have ending lives. So you know, when we're talking about garages and, you know, adding certain things in our projects, we're also talking about money that may still not increase the cost of doing business in Schaumburg because of the retirement of some bonds possibly. I think we need to enforce more encouragement in our retail commitment because of online sales. We also have to lobby the state because the state is starting to try to take some of our sales tax money from us, so that's important that we don't lose that.
Thank you. Mr. Dunham?
When you're running for office, it's very common to pick out something, express it a little bit differently than what it is, and campaign against it. Fact is that we have pension obligations, as do all communities. We have infrastructure obligations, as do all communities. We have, in 3 cases, we have union contracted benefits to pay to all of our employees for various different things, and this is considered debt. But each fund or each obligation that the village has a dedicated funding source. So it isn't like money is coming out of the general fund to satisfy these obligations. The state of Illinois charges us to collect our sales tax. That's inappropriate, I think. I've never heard of a state doing that, but they're in such bad shape, that's where they have to get their money.
Thank you. Mr. Bishke, you pass the microphone down before we start the timer. Thank
The village of Schaumburg has approximately 210 miles of village-owned roadways and streets. I think our biggest challenge right now is the rebuilding, the repair, and the maintaining of those streets. You know, I think the village has maybe fallen a little behind in previous years, but they've put some programs in place to inventory the streets, to identify the quality of the streets, and now what we need to do is increase funding to rebuild the failed streets, but then also repave and put some preventative measures in to keep our streets in better shape.
Thank you. Our next question will start with Mr. Feldenhauer. According to the 2010 census, the population of Schaumburg declined 1.5% and is aging. Is this cause for concern? And if so, what do you believe needs to be done to keep the village vibrant and healthy for years to come?
So, you said the 2010 consensus, correct?
2010 is the most recent census.
Sure, exactly. So that was 8-9 years ago. Being heavily involved in the school district, not only going through it, my wife and I both, our kids are in it now, as well as she's a 20-year teacher over at Frost. And once again, I'm part of the District 54 Foundation. So I deal a lot with the superintendent and all the schools. I feel on my neighborhood, we see more and more kids now every day, and then I feel that it's actually starting to turn back to a younger voice. There's a great mix. There's multi-generations here, and I feel that a lot of my friends that have moved out to Lake in the Hills or out west are now coming back to raise their family because they know that there is quality education. District 54 is in the top 7% of the country, and it's something that we should be pushing out more because it is very attractive to whether you're a parent, a grandparent, it's great for your family.
Thank you. As we move on to Mr. Taranova, if you'd speak directly into the microphone, I understand some of our guests are having trouble hearing in the back, please.
Okay, I apologize. I do have a cold too, so I'm sorry. I should apologize to them, they might catch it. So, I do agree with Scott. I did see a change in the 33 years out here. A lot of the residents were moving away, and it seems like they were getting older, or maybe they were going to Friendship Village or out west to projects out there. But I have seen an influx of younger coming, so I believe that just keeping, we could lower the property tax a little bit, transfer tax, trying to lower that a little bit, maybe to bring more people in. So I would hope that that would work. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Madej?
Well, I think our next census coming up, we'll be surprised. There's going to be some tremendous growth. We have the 211 property that is going to be developed. It's going to bring in quite a few single-family homes, some multi-home living buildings. Also, I've noticed that some of our older ranches in the W section, people are turning over, retiring someplace else and selling. Younger people are coming in, reinvesting, and putting their money into it. I think the 2010 was kind of a unusual number because, you know, that's just where we were starting to come back from our Great Recession. We had 2007, 2008, 2009. It was terrible. I mean, I even had problems. We had probably over 500 homes in foreclosure at that time. So, you know, I could see that just showing off in those numbers.
Thank you. Mr. Donovan?
Thank you. I think that the possible drop in the number of residents may have something to do with the state's financial condition overall. People are leaving Illinois in droves because they don't like all of the taxation that Springfield imposes. Our village board has either kept level or reduced the property taxes that the village residents pay every year since we proposed the tax. And that's a significant amount. And again, part of our general fund obligation is to pay the state of Illinois for collecting taxes for us that have already been spent. I don't believe that it's a local problem, but as Mr. Madej said, we are anticipating two very large developments coming in, and I think things are going to turn around a little bit.
Thank you. If you could pass the microphone back down, we'll get to Mr. Bishke.
You need more?
I think if you look at the future development plan that Schaumburg has in place, especially for the North Schaumburg Motorola redevelopment, which is called the Viridian development, you'll see that the type of housing and the style of neighborhood that is planned for that is specifically designed to attract the younger generations. If you look at some of the accolades that the village has gotten in the last year or two, one of the best places in the country for millennials. Money Magazine's number 9th best place in the country and best place in Illinois to live. The village understands the need to bring in younger generations, and the developments are representative of that.
Thank you. Mr. Bob Walker.
I have to agree with Trustee Martin and Donam. With the new census coming in 2010, I think we will see the difference. And also, it's not just, I don't think it's just Schaumburg. I think we see the drops in our Cook County, Texas, and overall in Illinois. The people are moving out of the Illinois and Cook County. So,
Thank you. As we start our next question, we'll begin with Mr. Taranova. While Schaumburg is densely populated, there are large parcels of land that are in the midst of redevelopment, pending development, or anticipated to become available. What are your thoughts on the plans and pace of development for these parcels?
Well, there are two in particular that I know that you might be talking about, and then there's the Motorola, which I feel the Motorola partial is going to be very, very well receptive. I think that is one of the things that definitely has to be, and there's private money in that too, so that's good. The 211, as I think Mark mentioned, that property is going to be developed. That's another good project that I believe should go. Now, we have a proposed art center for another $83 million. I say at this time, back off. Stay down. We got enough debt. Let's look at it, consider it, sit down. I'm not saying no to it. The parking garage is another answer. I know it's $33 million more, but if that's gonna make us lose our vendors at the convention center, then we have to seriously take a look at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Madej.
Thank you. Basically, Schaumburg is more into a phase of redevelopment, except for the District 211 properties, and we have a property on our far southwest side, which there is a company that has done some purchasing and closing on that, and they're going to be building something out there. I think it's a trucking facility, so that'll be taken care of. But most of the stuff is redevelopment. So that's important for the board to make sure that when something is redeveloped, that it is for the way we want to have it seen around surrounding neighborhoods. Just like the 211, they came back with their second plan, and we have to take a look at that and make sure that it fits into place. That's important, that things fit where they belong.
Thank you. Mr. Dunn.
In the previous forum, I mentioned that as far as I'm concerned, the Performing Arts Center is off the table. There is a possibility that it will be revisited at some time in the future. There's another possibility that the funds that have been set aside for it are going to be used for other things, i.e. the parking garage, and several other things. Now, the 211 property, they have finally submitted just the other day. It's either their second or their third plan that the staff is reviewing and that we're going to review. But perhaps you don't know that there is another parcel that, does anybody know where the horse farm is? At the northwest of Algonquin and Meacham. That development has been in and out several times. The Lober family that owns it wants a certain amount of money, and they're going to have to build something very dense, and we're not going to let them do it.
Thank you. As we make the microphone come back down the line, Mr. Bishke, you will be next.
So I think there's two very exciting developments going on right now in the north and the south parts of Schaumburg. The north part, I mentioned earlier, is the Viridian development. That's going to be a very unique, higher density, live, work, and play walking community. Very attractive for younger people, millennium generation, and so forth. The 211 property, largely single-family homes. The latest plans that the developer just submitted now include a ranch-style home with a first-floor master suite, which is one of the things that the village was trying to get from the developer because of input that we received, or that the village received from the National Citizen Surveys and from forums when they were redoing the comprehensive land use plan over the last 2 years. So I think those two developments are going to serve the community for a long time to come.
Thank you. Mr. Bagwalker.
Development on the property 211, I don't have much information about it, so I can answer that question, but like Brian said, the Motorola property will definitely a good development. And of course, the parking garage, we have to study more, if it's going to pay for itself or not. And I think Mr. Dormant already mentioned that the entertainment center is on the hold, and that's a great thing to know. We need to wait.
Mr. Feldman.
So I look at it more as projects across the board as opposed to maybe specific ones. When I'm walking around, I'm finding out a lot that people feel like Schaumburg looked like it had a boom in the 70s and 80s, and then since then all the strip malls look exactly the same, and they're not very appealing, and although they're only at a 7% vacancy rate, there's need to get those filled. And I know that the new director of economic development for the village is going to be great at doing that. But I feel that needs to be done. On the flip side, there are projects that have been in the works that we brought in a national headquarters for over 400 people that when it was all said and done said they would never do that again if they knew the red tape and the process they would have to go through to do that. And they've even said they've told other companies not to do that. So we need to find a way to bring these projects in and make them able to be accomplished in a more timely manner, at more of a joint effort between the village and these businesses, so that's attractive to bring new business into Schaumburg.
Thank you. We'll start our next question with Mr. Madej. How would you address dormant properties such as the old Dominic's in Town Square?
Well, one of the things with that is it's tough for the village to be involved. We look at, a legal avenue, and most of our attorneys say there's nothing we can do. It's owned by the parent company of Jewel. The leases. Tony's bought that building and the side strip part with Bonefish and all that some years back. His idea was to put a Tony's grocery store in there. Unfortunately, Jewel had 4 more 5-year options to their lease. They decided to hold on to it to prevent any competition. As you know, Jewel has 2 other stores in the community, and they're just protecting themselves. Tony's, he's getting his rent, so there's not a whole lot you can do. It's more of the community going and putting pressure on Jewel. That's the best thing we can do at this time. We're looking at, what legally we can do, but it doesn't look good right now.
Mr. Dunn.
Legally, we can take Tony's to court, and we will likely lose because Tony's and Jewel have a contractual lease, and as Mark said, Tony's getting his rent. Tony doesn't much care about the village. Tony would rather build stores in other locales, and while we don't like it, that seems to be, that's his right to do, and therefore the store sits open. If we were to go into a protracted legal battle with Tony's, number one, we'd lose it probably because it's not a blighted area. Eminent domain doesn't apply. And this is not a very happy thing to have to tell the people who live around it that want their store. But sadly, we don't want to spend your tax dollars on a legal battle that we will likely lose.
Thank you. Mr. Bishke?
The Dominic's property, as Mark and George have said, is a challenge. It's owned by Tony's Finer Foods. Their intent was to build a new supermarket there. Jewel renewed the lease, and that pretty much put that project on hold. Tony's went and built in other facilities. This is not a unique issue, by the way, for the village of Schaumburg. There are multiple empty Dominic stores sitting across the whole Chicago area that Jewel maintains and holds the lease on and refuses to come to the table and talk about. Other issues like the old Lowe's store and things like that, my understanding is that there is some activity going on, and there's an active aggressive plan to market those properties, and I think you might be seeing some of that information soon.
Thank you. Mr. Bogwacker?
I see it's a legal issue between landlords and the tenant. There is sometimes our hands are tied. I have a perfect example. I have bowling center, the straight 10 lanes. There was a previous tenant was involved in there. And when they moved out, the place was empty. And as a landlord, I had inquiry from the CVS and some other companies. They wanted to take over or move in, but they don't want to lease it and kind of tenant they want. So we had to wait till their lease ran out. And this is the same situation is here. They have a lease for 4 or 5 years term. So kind of hands are tied at this moment, If there is something legal matter, it's going to just cost money.
Thank you. Mr. Taranova? I'm sorry, am I in the right place? Mr. Feldenhauer, thank you. My apologies.
Oh, no, that's fine. So I also feel it's very unfortunate. That was my Dominic's. I live a couple of blocks from there, and it's very difficult to go, not difficult, but to go down to Schaumburg and Barrington or Wise and Roselle. I'm right in the middle. And I know at one point there was a desire to make that more of a downtown area. Unfortunately, we don't have a train or public transportation that gets us there. So without having that staple in there, it's going to be difficult. Our hands are probably tied for the next 5 years until we can work to redevelop that area. That being said, I think that places such as the 90 North District that they're looking to build, maybe more of that downtown function that everybody desires. Unlike Naperville or Palatine or Arlington Heights, where there's a train that goes to it, where it's lined up right now, it's difficult for us to have that. And I do feel like there needs to be a way to, unfortunately, tread water until we can do something about it.
Thank you. And now Mr. Taranova.
So my theory would be that as a board member, I would think that we would meet with them, and I did hear Ryan mention that they sat with them. Try to negotiate with Tony's, try to figure out a way to make it work, to fill that occupancy. So other than that, the other projects that are going on, we were told, like Brian had mentioned again about the Lowe's, they say there is somebody looking to come in, so that won't be empty. It's mostly the Dominic's property, which is Tony's. And I just believe sitting with them and trying to negotiate. Don't give up. I've been doing that all my life, and I believe that's one way that you work things out.
Thank you. Our next question will start with Mr. Dunham. How will the $15 an hour minimum wage increase affect the village and local businesses?
To be honest, I don't know. The Schaumburg Business Association has told us that many of the fast food and small retailers will chafe under this proposal. Fortunately, it's not going to take effect until I think 2024, 2025, something like that. It's going to be a gradual increase. That might make it a little bit easier for them, but we are further told that many of them will either consider going out of business or cutting back their operations to the point where the customers will not be as well served. I'm not sure that it's appropriate for a state to mandate a certain level of compensation, but that's what the state has done, so we have to live with it. Just like many of the things the state does, we have to live with. But to be honest, I can't answer your question, although I believe the business owners are right when they say that it's going to be a problem for them.
Thank you. Mr. Bishke.
I largely agree with Mr. Dunham. I think it's going to be a challenge, especially for the smaller business owners, and even some government institutions such as the Park District who rely on summertime help for lifeguards at pools and things like that. And as those rates increase over time, it's going to boil down to consumers. So yeah, they'll be earning more money, but everything is going to cost more money. So in the end, what's the net effect? I think it's kind of too early to tell.
Thank you. Mr. Bob Walker.
Well, $15 an hour, it's going to hurt small businesses, the medium-sized businesses, as well as I see the fast food chain either. Here they have a dollar menu and $15 an hour. So if the $15 an hour, that's going to be a $2 menu then, So either people have to cut down their hours or the employee to make up the difference. And that's what I see. But Mr. Dunham says it's going to go gradually, so we'll have to see.
Thank you. Mr. Feldenau.
So I actually alluded to this a little bit ago. But what happens is, through the outreach through the Schaumburg Business Association, we conduct surveys amongst the area. We went to 121 local businesses, and we took a sample of what they thought. And part of it was that it's a bigger concern now that it's going to be statewide as opposed to when it was only Cook County, because before, as close as we are to DuPage, we were afraid we were going to lose business from Schaumburg to Roselle. And then now what we're going to see is that companies, if they have branches in other states, will move their operations to there, which will in turn hurt our businesses here, so they are going to limit their growth. Hypothetically, if this was supposed to happen next year specifically, there were going to be 2,000 employees that were going to be hired as forecasted. Because of this going to $15 an hour, it would have been scaled back to 740. So right there, you're losing almost 3/4 of the workforce that isn't paying sales tax dollars to Schaumburg.
Thank you. Mr. Taranova.
So I see things in a different light. I come from the community where I believe if you give people more money, they spend more money. If you give them more and raise them up, they will spend that money in their community. Those restaurants, those people that say it's going to go down, it'll actually go up. It's a proven fact. I've been in the labor movement my whole life and I've seen it work. And it's gradual, and the governor said he's going to find some ways to help businesses. We don't want to lose any businesses, but I believe the more you give to people, the more they'll spend, and I think that'll boost the local economy.
Mr. Madej.
Well, I think if you talk about fast food chains and things like that, they've already in the process in other states have worked on reducing the cost of labor by reducing the employees. So we're losing employment on the lower income society, which is a problem that we're going to have to look at. But on another side, I think that it's going to hurt the consumer, because we're not just talking about fast food, we're talking about stock pickers in warehouses and stuff, and that's all about, you know, stocking our shelves in grocery stores and retail stores, and you know, your online buying addiction. So that's going to bring the prices up on shipping, receiving, and on products. So the consumer's going to hurt on this.
Thank you. Our next question will start with Mr. Bishke, so if we could bring the microphone down. Do you favor video gaming within the village? And if so, what are the benefits and challenges that would come with this change?
So I'm not going to say I favor gaming, but I'm not opposed to gaming. I think it's something that we should absolutely look into. I think it's a revenue source that we're not tapping into from the village. But I do believe that there can be some challenges, or there will be some challenges in the implementation if we go down that path. And so it would be my intention to craft a very narrow, very tightly controlled ordinance around video gaming and video gambling. It's been my experience in the last 14 years of working with the village that ordinances can always be expanded to be a little bit less restrictive, but it's very difficult to tighten an ordinance up and change what's already been implemented. So it's something that I'm open to, and it's something that needs to be further explored.
Thank you. Mr. Bodwalker.
Well, it's got two sides. It's addiction, it's gambling, if you look at it that way. But if you don't have it and all your surrounding suburbs, surrounding community has it, you are the one who's losing the revenue. People are, no matter what, if they are gambling, they're going to go to the next suburb or closest location they're going to go to. Any restaurants or bar, they have gambling machines, they're going to go to that place, they're going to spend their money to the bar and the restaurant as well. So we are not only losing out on gambling revenue, as well as we're going to lose out on food and beverage sales either.
Thank you. Mr. Feldenhausen.
So I definitely feel like it's something that needs to be considered. In my conversations with elected officials in surrounding towns, they have said that this is one of the biggest things that they regretted, was taking so long to take it as a resource. The initial thought 7-8 years ago when this came out was that it was going to bring the wrong element to Schaumburg. People aren't going to travel here to put $20 in at, Chandler's while they're having lunch. But at the same time, what it does is it will keep people from going to Hoffman or Roselle or Elk Grove for lunch if they are looking to do that. The money's already here. Why send sales tax dollars out of Schaumburg? Also, I have friends that own restaurants in Hoffman and Roselle that, not that they were struggling, but they were breaking even, and this lifted them out of that and made it a profitable business for them. So there has been a benefit that way as well.
Thank you. Mr.
I guess I
Chairman.
could say ditto. So I agree with Scott on a lot of those issues. I am in favor of really taking a serious look at it because I believe of all the reasons that has been said and the element that they said would come to the village with it. The other villages haven't seen that bad element. Now there are some people, I had a concern today at the past forum. One of the gentlemen came up to me and said, you know, there are people that are addicted to gambling. I said, I understand that, I do. So that could be a problem. But I would hope that they know the right places where to go, and there are phone numbers to get them help. So, but I really believe that we're losing on a lot of tax dollars, and I believe the last 7 years we've lost a lot. So I'm in favor of really opening and looking at it.
Thank you. Mr. Madej.
Well, our number one local newspaper, Daily Herald, has a good article on this if you want to read it. That basically explains pretty much all of us are in agreement that it should be looked at further. And you know, us incumbents, we have had chatter and discussion about possibly looking more into it. But we would like to see it on a more reserved basis, as keeping a limitation on where these machines would go, not just everywhere in the community.
Thank you. Mr. Dunn.
Thank you. I was unalterably opposed to the concept of video gaming when I first heard about it, 10 years ago, something like that. And I just thought that such activity didn't belong in the village of Schaumburg. But over the years, my position has softened a little bit, and when it became apparent that everybody around us was doing this and collecting revenue, for their respective communities, I did a little survey. I talked to chiefs of police in Hoffman Estates, Oak Grove, Palatine, Arlington Heights, several other towns, and the consensus was that it's not a problem. It's not an enforcement problem. It's if people are going to gamble to excess, they're going to do it regardless. And it's something that I believe we should look at very carefully, very thoroughly, and very cautiously before we implement it. But I think we need to give that some strong consideration.
Thank you. Our next question will begin with Mr. Bogwalker. Affordable housing is difficult to find for folks who work in our communities, such as nursing aides, home care aides, restaurant workers, house cleaners, and others in low-wage jobs. What are your plans to increase the amount of affordable housing in the village of Schaumburg?
Sorry, I can't answer that question. I'm not familiar with that. I think that the city, village of Schaumburg is working on it, on affordable housing, and we have to study more.
Thank you. Mr. Feldenhelm.
I feel it's not cheap to live in Schaumburg, and that is something that you need to consider. If we want to bring talent in from younger talent into the workforce, we need to look at workplaces. The top 5 places that college grads are coming from now are Champaign-Urbana, Bloomington, Indiana, Wichita, Kansas, Bloomington, Normal, as well as Iowa City. We need to go out and attract them, and if we're going to do that, we need to find ways to give them affordable housing if we want to keep our businesses and our towns here in Schaumburg. And along with that, there are also through the nursing and through the nursing and senior services, there are housings that are coming up in the new 90 North District. They're going to be building the Harbor Chase unit, assisted living and memory care. So there will be buildings out there that can be utilized, that they just need to be directed to in regards to just being aware of them.
Thank you. Mr. Taranova.
So again, I'm going to agree with some of the things that Scott said, because I believe that the village now has a policy, and I'm sure you'll hear it, that they do have some housing. I believe one is down the street from my home that I know about. That so there is some affordable housing, but we have to do a better job if we are going to attract young entrepreneurs to come to this town. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Madej.
Well, we do have quite a few locations in Schaumburg that already have that kind of housing, and we're looking at International Village, Tree House. You're looking on Valley Lake. But again, also in long-term development, we've been in the process of changing zoning areas around the Woodfield area. Some of the tall office buildings are interested in turning them into condos or apartments for young professionals. The same thing with the Motorola property. That would be for young professionals entering into a community, And I think, again, I mentioned about the housing section, people are investing, buying ranches and reinvesting in them and making them for small family starters.
Thank you. Mr. Dunham.
Thank you. Schaumburg is pretty well built out. The properties that we have available, as you've heard, are the 211 property. There's a small piece of property on the south side of Schaumburg Road, more or less across the street from the post office. It's going to be about 12 single-family homes when they finally get their water situation squared away. And then again, the 90 North. The problem is that most of these properties are already owned by developers. And it would be incumbent on those developers to schedule some low cost or affordable, if you like that word better, housing on their various properties, but that's not necessarily something that we can mandate or would be willing to pay for, because it would be your tax dollars that we'd be doing it with, and so far we're not in the business of subsidizing low-income housing.
Thank you. Mr. Bishke.
Yeah, I agree. The biggest piece of property that has the potential to put in any sort of low-income housing development or new low-income housing development would be the property north of 90, the Meridian area. And the concept plan for that part of the community and the developer's vision does not include low-income housing. As Trustee Dunham said, we are very built out. There is only a few areas in town where we could build new home or new housing developments, but any sort of low-income development would have to have a tax implication.
Thank you. Our next question will begin with Mr. Feldenauer. If elected, what committees do you hope to serve on and why?
Well, I hope that Brian's half joking when he tells me that my blood program committee is not as upkept as some of the other ones. But I do have a big passion for the donating blood. If I could save 3 of my neighbors' lives, it's just the same to me as if I'm trying to argue if we need 2 or 3 bushes outside of a gas station. That being said, I do like the fact that there is concern and there's thoughtful, there's a thought process going on to make sure that we do keep Schaumburg pretty and beautiful, and that it is with all the amenities that we deserve as a village. So, whether it's the planning board, whether it's the transportation, trying to get a train out so we have something that's more able to service the district that's going on 90 North, or if it's more of just making sure that I'm aware of what's going on and attending those meetings. I think it's great to be at least well informed.
Thank you. Mr. Taranova.
My first desire would be to be on the Police and Fire Commission, being a past police officer. And so that it's a matter of record, I have tried to get on that a few times and was never able to get on. I don't know what that was about, but so that would be my first priority. The transportation would be the second committee that I would really like to be on to. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Madej.
Well, the blood donation thing is interesting because I have type O negative, which means my blood's good for everybody in this room. Except I can only have type O negative. So thank you for donating your blood if you have that type. They also say type O negative is alien. So anyways, yeah, I'm already an incumbent, so I'm on Engineering and Public Works, I'm on Transportation, and I chair Health and Human Services. The way it usually goes is you show your interest, and usually the mayor appoints us to the different standing committees. So that's something that will have to come up after the election.
Thank you. Mr. Dunham.
Yeah, I would echo that. I chair the Finance Committee. Its real name is Finance, Legal, Administrative, and General Government. And that's my main committee assignment. I serve on Public Safety and on Planning, Building, and Development. I've been on the other committees, but all but one of them. I've never been on Engineering and Public Works. And if things were to be so ordered at that point in time, then I would have to give up one of those assignments and go on EPW. But again, that would be more or less the choice of the village president, who will ask our preferences and so forth, and then make his decision. So I really don't have a better answer than that.
Thank you. Mr. Bishke.
So when a trustee is elected, they typically get appointed to chair one of the 6 standing committees and serve on 2 of the other 6 standing committees. The 3 that I'm most interested in are planning, building, and development, the finance committee, and engineering and public works. The planning, building, and development specifically because I enjoy being involved and having input into the economic development of the community. Engineering and public works because that's always a hot button with residents, especially around this time of year when snow plowing and street improvements and things like that. And finance just because I'm a geek. I like to read contracts. I crawl through the budget every year. I like to do all the numbers, and so that's just one of the reasons that I'd like to be on the finance, legal, and general government.
Thank you. Mr. Bogwacker.
I have been in several different types of business, so I can fit in any of the committee, either it's the finance or the planning or the transportation. Wherever it needs me, wherever I fit, I'll be happy to join that committee and serve that committee.
Thank you. Time now requires that we move to closing statements. Candidates, you will have 1 minute, and we will start with Mr. Taranova.
Thank you. Once again, I want to thank everybody for attending and giving me the opportunity to speak to you. I would like to be your next elected Village Schaumburg trustee. I will bring my passion, knowledge, and expertise to serve the Village of Schaumburg. The Village of Schaumburg has excess debt, and with my experience, I will bring new ideas and solutions necessary to improve our village. As your village trustee, I will listen to the needs of all the community. Consider and look at all the information and do what's best for Schaumburg, its businesses, and its residents. I have been a public servant all my adult life, and I am not afraid to make tough decisions and do what's right. This April 2nd, you have a chance to elect new people in office for the village. I'm asking you to support me and my team. We are seeking your vote. Please don't forget, early voting starts on March 18th. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Madej.
Yes, I'd like to be re-elected so I can continue making Schaumburg a great place to live, work, and raise a family through thoughtful planning and the process. With that in mind, our opponents, I got a post from a resident that kind of explains it better than I can. And basically, I'm going to read this real quick. With big money, big endorsements, and big downstate ideas entering the race to take over Schaumburg, think of how our state finances and political climates are currently down in Springfield. And when you vote on April 2nd, remember who has kept Schaumburg a great place for our families, our businesses, and shopping experiences. Please vote for us.
Thank you. Mr. Dunham.
Thank you. The opportunity to serve you as a village trustee for a considerable amount of time has been probably the greatest professional honor that I've ever had. I take it very seriously. It's my belief that dedicated people who are well informed and who do their homework and who are deeply involved in the community make the best decision makers for that community. I don't believe that that it's necessarily appropriate for people who show up at election time, point to, in a nebulous fashion, point to a lot of things that they say are wrong with the village or with any entity, and then make accusations about how things, in this case, how things basically aren't, and then try to get your vote.
Thank you.
I will be honored to continue serving you.
Mr. Bishke.
Although I've served the village of Schaumburg for 14 years in the various committees and capacities that I've mentioned, this is my first attempt at an elected position. I'm excited about it. Public service and community service is in my DNA. Those people in the room that know me know that besides the work that I've done with the village, I've served on numerous different organizations, so Schaumburg Park Foundation, Children's Advocacy Center. I'm a member of the Rotary Club of Schaumburg AM. My goal would be to serve the people. I want to hear your concerns. I want to hear what keeps you up at night. I want to help make and keep Schaumburg the best place to be able to live, work, and raise a family.
Thank you. Mr. Bob Walker.
Thank you. Schaumburg is in debt, and if elected trustee, I will work to reduce our expense without sacrificing public safety. We need to examine our spending and eliminate unnecessary costs. We cannot spend what we don't have. I am not a politician. I am a businessman, and I know how to reduce the cost and generate more revenue. I want to be a point person for the small to medium-sized businesses in our community. I want to be a voice for all the residents, particularly the South Asian community, which makes up nearly 25% of population in Schaumburg. We need a business-savvy trustee and diversity in our village government. I believe we are at a turning point in our community, and we need some changes and new ideas. I am humbly asking for your support for my candidacy for trustee in this election. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Feldenhauer.
In respect to time, I'm going to paraphrase a quick clip from a quote I recently read that I feel applies, where by the late Penny Marshall. She said that she was a combination of insecurity and fearlessness. I feel it's my insecurity in making the wrong decision for the village of Schaumburg. It drives me to dive deep into the details, take on all outside perspectives so that we as a team can come up with the best resolution for Schaumburg. And it's my work ethic, mental fortitude, courage, and ties to the community both as a resident and through business that provides me the fearlessness to sit in front of you right now and to tell you I will do great things for the village of Schaumburg as a member of this board. And I want to say thank you for your consideration of your vote, and that we together will continue Schaumburg down its path of excellence. Thank you.
Thank you. As we bring our forum to a close, I want to thank our candidates for their participation. Candidates will be in the lobby to greet you if you have further questions for them. Be sure to vote on Tuesday, April 2nd. If you're staying for the next forum, it will start in about 5 minutes. Please move to the middle so others can join us. Thank you.